As we go through the maths, science, and the rationale of building up your stockpile, always remember these three things. 1 is the rules of 3, the second is that Rome was not built in a day, and the third is that your stockpile is an investment that becomes priceless during a prolonged disaster, or a complete collapse of what is now normal. Building up your stockpile requires patience, time, a conscientious effort, and, without doubt, a financial investment. As you move towards the target of at least a 6-month stockpile, do so within your own timescale and means, and importantly, do it in terms of a plan. As you build up your stockpile, what you are in fact doing is building a survival platform. This platform will enable you and your family to avoid that sense of panic and desperation which usually emerges at that moment when a crisis hits. You are also buying time in advance, which will allow you to maintain your sense of rationality, and a means to remain ahead of whatever emerges from the dark shadows of a crisis. Lastly, you are building a protection safeguard that gives you durability, and a means to avoid any adverse exposure during a crisis. In a nutshell, your stockpile is your own reserve tank. Importantly, your stockpile could indeed become your very own reserve bank, where each stockpiled item could become an invaluable trade commodity that brings you greater advantage and benefits. So, let's get into the basics of prepper stockpiling. Without water, life as we know it would not exist. As a prepper, you store water for two reasons. One is obviously to sustain life, and the other is to support any other incidental need that you may have. You will obviously store water before you need it, and not at the time when you need it. Medical health experts suggest that a person is required to drink at least 3 liters of water per day to maintain bodily functions. This equates to about 12 cups of water per day. This suggestion is, however, influenced by factors such as the person's level of activity, the environmental conditions in which the person operates, and the person's overall health. It is also true that most of us do not consume 3 liters of water in a day, or even get close to it. At best, we only drink water or other fluids when we are thirsty. It is also true that instead of just water, fluid intake needs are also achieved through other means, such as eating fruit and vegetables, and consuming other beverages such as tea, juice, coffee, etc. But remember, we are planning for a what-if and a worst-case scenario where their access to supplied drinking water is no longer possible. You must also take into account that a disaster situation could mean more physical activity, abnormal or extreme weather, and certainly not having access to the comforts of that regular hot cup of coffee, that fresh and succulent fruit, or that freshly squeezed orange juice. Therefore, the first element of stockpiling of drinking water is to ensure that your plan accounts for every family member having access to their fair share, so that, when thirsty, that thirst can be quenched. This will include the water needs of pets if you have any. Remember, staying hydrated means staying healthy. Staying healthy during a disaster is an absolute goal. Obviously, having access to the recommended 3 liters of water per person per day would be your first target. However, if you suddenly think of going out and buying bottled water for this purpose, let's first look at the maths of this target. For one person, 3 liters of water per day would mean at least 21 liters per week, and around 91 liters for a month. Remembering that the stockpile target is to build up a 6-month reserve, then this equates to at least 546 liters of water for one person. For a typical family of 4, this would mean 2,184 liters of stockpiled drinking water. If you were considering stockpiling this amount in container or bottled format, then this would mean 109 20-liter containers of water, or 437 5-liter bottles of bottled water, or 1,092 2-liter bottles of bottled water, or 2,184 1-liter bottles of bottled water. Other than the affordability factor of purchasing such large volumes of bottled water, you must also consider the impact of the combined storage volume and weight of the stored water as it relates to your storage area. You could instead look at a combination of options of how you could achieve the stockpile target, and where, through a combination of water stockpiling options, you could in fact improve your prepper advantage and survival odds, and where this would also have direct positive impact on your overall prepper strategy and tactics. One option would be to install an approved drinking water storage tank that is professionally plumbed in tandem with your domestic water supply main. This system could be operated on a cistern-like setup, where municipal water is first passed through the tank before it is fed back into your domestic pipework. This will also allow for continuous recycling of water, and at the time of domestic water supply failure, you would still have a full tank of drinking water at your disposal. This is of course assuming that the tank did fill up to its maximum volume before the main water supply ceased, and that you had a shut-off valve or non-return valve installed to prevent backflow of the tank water into the now empty municipal supply pipe. If you are fortunate enough to have a borehole on your property, then this will obviously be a good easy-to-access resource. However, you must bear in mind that during a prolonged crisis, this resource could be commandeered by government authorities and then you could find yourself standing in line to access your own borehole. Or, that during a crisis, your borehole becomes a sitting duck target that could draw all kind of undesired attention from undesired people. If you have a tanked water storage system to cater for your emergency water needs, then well done. If you are planning to install one, then brilliant thinking. But, a good prepper never puts all the eggs in one basket. A good prepper is probably the most rational person, and will always ask the what-if question when it comes to preparedness planning. You must ask yourself key what-if questions such as, what if my tank springs a leak? What if my tanked water or my borehole becomes contaminated? What if my borehole gets commandeered? What if the local authority dispatches tankers to supply drinking water? How do I collect this water? What if I need to bug out? It then makes sense to also invest in storing drinking water in a portable format. This will be important not only as possible answers to your what-if questions, but also, critically to address the continuity and tactics factors of ensuring the flexibility and mobility of your stockpiled cache. So, instead of just buying that entire truckload of commercially produced bottled water, a more cost-effective alternative would be to invest in approved food-grade 20-liter water storage containers, which can then be filled up from your tap, and managed in the same 6-month recycling method as for stored standing water. Depending on your family size, you should have at least one of these 20-liter containers per family member. Mathematically, in terms of water consumption needs, this then means that a 20-liter container would fulfill the drinking water needs for one person for 1 week. If you have pets, especially dogs, you will need to allocate at least 1 liter per day for them. Ideally, you should maintain a 2-week supply in this manner. Added to this, and other than storing water for your pets for a 2-week supply, you should also keep at least another 40 liters stored for cooking and personal hygiene needs. In total, this would mean an investment in at least 10 water storage containers for a family of 4. The one key and critical element that you must then also keep in your stockpile, as part of your water quality management regime, and which will give you the ability to disinfect water, is unscented chlorine bleach. Importantly, it must be unscented chlorine bleach that is suitable for disinfection and sanitization as indicated on the label. Do not, I repeat, do not use scented, color-safe, or bleaches with added cleaners. It must be unscented or regular bleach. You will need to purchase a few bottles of these and keep in your stockpile. Remember that during a water crisis, where people are advised to disinfect water, the unscented bleach stock could easily become depleted at your local store, or worse, there could be an imposed limit of quantities per person. Before I get to how to disinfect water, let's go through the basics of preparing your water storage containers. This is important to ensure that the water is good from day one. Whether you use food-grade water storage containers, or 2-liter plastic bottles, prepare them by thoroughly cleaning them with dishwashing liquid and water. Then make sure you rinse them even more thoroughly to get rid of any residual soap. Once you have properly rinsed them, sanitize the containers and bottles afterwards using the following as a guide. For the 2-liter plastic bottles, fill the bottle halfway, that is, up to 1 liter, and then add a teaspoon of your unscented chlorine bleach. For the 20-liter water container, fill at least 2 liters of water and then add 2 teaspoons of the unscented chlorine bleach. Close the bottle or container, and shake it vigorously so that the solution touches all the internal surfaces. After this, thoroughly rinse the bottle or container with clean water. Now you can fill up the bottle or container with regular tap water. Once filled and properly closed, write down the date of filling on a label or a piece of masking tape and stick this onto the container or bottle. This is important for your 6-month recycling of stored water. To recap, remember, without water, life as we know it would not exist. You must store water before you need it, not at the time when you need it. Don't take for granted your current municipal water supply. In fact, unless you have buried your head in the sand, you should be very worried about the current state of decay of municipal bulk services infrastructure, and the looming failure that this signifies. More so, you should be aware that water supply is dependent not just on rainfall, but also impacted by demand. The more towns and cities experience rapid urbanization, the more development occurs, the more water consumers flood an area, the more inadequate dams that were built more than 30 years ago become to meet these new demands. In fact, there is no such thing as day zero when it comes to water supply, only bad planning. A good prepper is a good planner, and definitely someone who scoffs at people creating new terms to hide bad planning. Start your water stockpile now.
Subscribe to the South African Prepper. Like and share our videos to other South Africans, since we are all in this together. Here you get real information and fact-based insights. We don't do opinion or BS. Preparedness is not a hobby, it is a way of life that could save your life.